What's up, guys, and welcome to the channel. This is Tyler Tote. Guys, today I have an insane story to share with you, one that I think we can take a lot of lessons from. It's about this young man right here, Trevor Bauer. He's the 2020 NL Cy Young winner at the top of his profession, MLB baseball. In 2021, he's accused by a woman, Lindsay Hill, of doing some really heinous and absolutely awful things. He gets the biggest suspension in MLB history. A lot of his teammates turn on him. MLB turns on him. All over the news, scandals. Some really crazy stuff that we get into. Turns out this week, she made the whole thing up. We have text messages now that all go over that she just came out and recognized right away that this guy is worth $51 million. She texts her friends about it. I'm going to get that bag. I'm going to be a, in her words, whore and do what I need to do to get that bag. This is a serial girl that's tried this before. This is so damaging, such a cautionary tale to a lot of guys out there, and a lot of lessons I think we can all learn and take away from this as a society and where we want to go. So guys, this is a wild story. Buckle up and let's dive in. So who is Trevor Bauer? Let's set that story first. So Trevor Bauer, NL Cy Young winner, 1.73 ERA, absolute top of his profession, a beast of a pitcher. Also one of the first guys to host a vlog and openly talk about life in the MLB, maybe even say some derogatory things about him. He took some heat for that before. But overall, just, he's the top of his profession. He's making $25 million a year. Before this incident, he was in talks to be signing a $200 million extension. This guy's just at the top of his game. Things are kind of rolling along. One of the most dominant pitchers of his era. Now enter in Lindsay Hill. Now, who is Lindsay Hill, you ask? She's a mid-20s from San Diego, California. Her previous boyfriends include Fernando Tatis Jr., who just happens to be a Major League Baseball player making $25 million a year, as well as White Sox pitcher Mike Clevenger. Now, this guy only made $5 million a year and has about $1 million or so net worth. So we're not sure what she was doing with this guy, but you can see that she has a very clear pattern of what you would call a cleats chaser or jersey chaser. There are women out there like this who just obviously want to date high society, high net worth athlete kind of guys. So she was in this pool of men, it seemed like, for a while. Now in 2021, she becomes quite famous as she alleges that Trevor Bauer actually choked her, physically hurt her, raped her many times. She felt threatened for her life. All these accusations come out. Trevor Bauer the next day claims his innocence, but he is proven guilty until innocent. MLB hands him the largest suspension in history, 324 games. His contract is void, so he's no longer making the $25 million a year. No chance now to sign this extra $200 million deal. He's actually kicked out of the league. His teammates start to turn on him quite a bit, say negative things. The Dodgers come out, MLB comes out with this whole culture against rape. And of course, all those things are good, but nobody ever listens to his side of the story. The whole time he claims, I'm innocent, this girl's crazy, these things never happened. Well, this goes on for a year or two. Turns out now we have text messages leaked that, by the way, the DA and all these people had for a long time. They chose not to disclose because of fear, and we'll get into that later. But I'm going to show you a few of these text messages. Here they are. She comes out and says, next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers, $51 million net worth. Her friend responds, get that bag. She says, I'm going to have to be a whore for this one and let him choke me out. She has this entire thing planned to go after him and get him like this. Now, we're in an era where it's believe all women and Me Too, and we see a lot of this stuff come out, and this is very, very dangerous, right? And so I want to get into this as we move forward. There's an actual video of her taken the morning of after the alleged incident, which I'll show a little clip here, 15 seconds, her smiling, her doing selfies. Trevor Bauer doesn't even know he's being filmed. He's sleeping in his sleep mask there. There's no bruises, there's no injuries. DA, MLB, everybody allegedly had access to all this stuff weeks after it happened, yet they continued to double down and punish this guy. They continued to say, well, he's guilty until proven innocent. I made a video recently on Russell Brand and what we're seeing there too, that anybody can just come out and accuse anybody of anything. This sets a very, very dangerous precedent. Do we want to live in a society where you are innocent until proven guilty? Or you're guilty until you have to prove your innocence? Look at what it cost this guy. Trevor Bauer, top of his profession, gonna sign a $200 million a year contract. All of a sudden, he is ruined. He's playing in Japan, overseas now. He cannot get signed by teams. If you Google him right now, you will see things come up like rapist, like all these things. That wasn't him. He's being fully cleared. Even the judge actually took off the restraining order from her, citing that she's pretty crazy. he didn't do anything wrong, but he's forever tarnished. What happens to her? What happens to this girl? Nothing. She's going on a podcast tour. She's making thousands of dollars now. She'll probably write a book. This is a crazy double standard, and this really, really is a scary part of our society, and there's a few points we need to look at here. Now, what this does, number one, in my opinion, is actually harms actual victims. Now, there's plenty of stories of women that actually have this stuff happen to them, and they say after, I'm afraid to come out because people won't believe me because of people like this. And what it does is it empowers other people then to say, well, that's the boy that cried wolf. I've heard this story again. Oh, famous athlete, that would never happen. And so it makes actual victims and actual women who have this happen to them in a position of lower power where they feel like they can't come out. They can't be trusted. Every time something like this happens, whether it be Amber Heard, AKA Amber Turd, whatever that might happen, right? Where they're accusing these men of doing all these things, it hurts actual victims. I look at it from a different lens too and say, there's a crazy guy a few years back, MAGA country, Jussie Smollett. You guys remember this nut? It's MAGA country at 3 a.m. in Chicago, right? One of the most liberal cities in the world. He claims that, people were racist and tied a noose around his neck and did all these things. Again, who does that really harm outside of taxpayers that had to spend tens of millions of dollars on these investigations? Nothing happened to him, right? Like, he's still free walking around. But what it does is, again, it hurts actual victims of racism. It gives actual racist people a chance to say, you know what, it's just another smoke in the wind, boy who cried wolf. So I think there has to be consequences and there has to be things that happen when women accuse men of this, and it is 100% proven that it is not true. Now, I'm a massive proponent of when people do crime, they should do the time. You look at a guy like Harvey Weinstein, say, he's kind of the poster child for using his power in Hollywood to, rape and do a lot of these terrible things to women. He got punished for that. He should be punished to the full extent. I am a big fan of, if you are a woman and you accuse a man of this and you come at this with these allegations, you ruin his life, you cost him $200 million, whatever that is. Even if it's not on that extreme or this public of a case, you should have to go to jail and pay the exact penalty that he was going to have to. So if he did actually rape you and choke you and he was going to get 15 years in prison, you go to prison for 15 years. There has to be some kind of precedent set where a woman like this needs to be made an example of, to say this isn't just a thing. Oh, it's okay. I guess it didn't happen, right? She ruined a guy's life. And here's the other deeper level of this that I see. What if he didn't have $50 million, that he could hire the best legal teams, that he could hire people to go investigators and dig up these things and fight back against the MLB and fight back against these allegations? He might be in prison today. How many girls are in prison because they don't have the means to go do this? It's a very scary precedent. And again, I think we all want to live in a society of innocent until proven guilty. Another point I want to make here, and this is Tom Glavine, one of my favorite pitchers from my era, came up and said, as a famous athlete, I'd be terrified to play in today's climate with women like this. Allegations are happening all the time. Now, I want to address this and put the ownership back on men. Dude, we live in a time of this hookup culture and, it's just normal. You're a pro athlete, you're famous, you're hooking up with people left and right. Guys need to take some ownership and responsibility in this as well. You know how this stuff doesn't happen? You stop putting your ding dong in absolutely crazy women. That's something that could actually take care of this. Now look, I'm not saying I was perfect at this back in the day. If I could go back, I'd certainly do a lot of things different. I try and see things the older and wiser I get through the lens of God's ways are right. And there are just going to be consequences when you are doing things outside of this awesome book that he gave us that's an awesome template to live the best life. And so if you're choosing to do this in today's climate and you're a famous guy, you're a famous whatever that is, you better almost expect things like this to happen. So if I'm a coach, if I'm talking to somebody who's famous, wealthy, young, rich, all these things today, we're going to have deep conversations about what that looks like. Are you hooking up with every random hottie that comes along that's going to try and exploit you? What does that look like? I know some guys, as I started digging into this story a little bit, who actually have managers and coaches and people that help them that actually will make girls sign NDAs, non-disclosure. So if they start dating, if they're going out for a date or a night or whatever that is, they will actually make them sign. There's no videos, there's none of this stuff, right? I don't know how you protect yourself outside of maybe just distance yourself from the crazy. But if you're a guy in this era, you have to take precautions. You have to never be alone with these crazy women, not put yourself in those positions. And ultimately, if you're out there hooking up with 100 chicks a year, this is probably just gonna happen to you. So you need to take some ownership on that too. Another thing I definitely want to highlight here is just the absolute blatant double standard of what happens. Cardi B is allegedly a famous rapper or something out there. I don't know who these people are anymore. But as I was reading through this story, a story came up about her where she said, I used to drug men, and I guess she was a stripper back in the day, and she would actually drug men and rob them. That was just a thing. She just talks openly about it. Other women have, oh yeah, I kind of did that too, right? Okay, where's the Me Too movement for that? Why are we so one-sided on this stuff, right? Now, again, I'm a big ownership guy. I go back to the piece that you control what you can control. I'll be very honest, in my early 20s, I believe I was 21 or 22 years old, I hate to admit it, but I went to a strip club in Las Vegas with a bunch of buddies. I'm not gonna say I was drugged, but I'm gonna say I had one drink and I don't remember the rest of the night. Wasn't drinking before I went there. One drink, ended up in the VIP room with my buddy. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars, walked out 6, 7 in the morning, completely blacked out, don't remember it. Again, not gonna say they put something in my drink. I have to take ownership. I put myself in that spot, but I decided after that night, never again. I remember telling my buddy, I will give you $10,000 if I ever walk foot in a strip club again. Rest of my life. That's a free roll for you. Haven't had to pay him yet. Don't plan on paying him again. So you have to take ownership at this, but I do believe there's a double standard. What if a man came out and just said, yeah, like I just date, really overweight women. I'm a really good looking guy. And dude, I just drug them sometimes and steal stuff from them years later. You think there wouldn't be backlash for that? I think if we want equality and we want to talk about some of these bigger things in society, then let's have it. Let's not allow women to do this, to come into men and there's no consequence. Again, you cannot be proven guilty until innocent. And that is something we really need to think about as a society. The last thing I'll say about this is it's really sad that it came out that Pasadena police and the DA and a lot of these people had a lot of these text messages and evidence before, and they actually did nothing about it. It turns out that a month or two in, the MLB had a lot of these text messages, a lot of these videos, and did nothing about it. They didn't want to come out and be against this Me Too movement or against this era of we can't believe all women. They just went ahead and ruined an innocent guy's life. I'm waiting for the MLB to come apologize. I'm waiting for the Dodgers to apologize. They ruined this guy's life. I hope that Trevor Bauer has the means to attack them and get every cent back and more. Again, he's playing in Japan right now. He had to leave his family. For the rest of his life, if you Google this guy, I'm certain it'll come up about these allegations. She's now making money on some podcast tour talking about this thing, and nothing will happen to her. I think we need to have a hard look as a society and say this is wrong. Again, I think the pendulum swings too much in society where there was definitely an era of our society where, this is wild to me, women couldn't even vote and it wasn't that long ago. Do you really think about it? Obviously, some things have changed and we've moved way farther over to this side. But as we kind of balance out and we need to have these bigger discussions of what does it look like? What are young men doing to protect themselves out there? I listed a couple things I think they need to do. But what do you guys think in the comments? This story blew me away. It's something that a lot of mainstream media doesn't touch, obviously, because it doesn't fit their narratives and what they want people to think and be thinking about all the time. But I'd love to know what you guys think. To me, this was a terrifying precedent. I'm seeing it more and more out there. It seems like a playbook. Certain people don't maybe like the things you say or put out there. All of a sudden, there's an accusation. Maybe a couple years later, it gets disproven, but by then, the damage is done. So I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know. As the more I dug into this, the scarier it got to me. I do think we need to take some steps as society to heal and to have these bigger conversations and what this looks like. I also adamantly think that girl should be in jail for the next 30 years and pay a big price for this. Let me know what you guys think, though. Above all else, I hope you guys go have the greatest day of your life. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have the greatest day.